For those who are unaware, this is part 2 to my season 9 ranking. Originally, I had it as one massive video. It was going to be like 50 minutes long. But then, for some reason, it just wouldn't save, and I lost half the video. So, and because I'm too lazy to try and do the whole process again, I'm just going to split it up into 2 different videos, because for some reason it saves when it's 2 videos, but not when it's one massive video. So, well, probably because it's a massive video. So yeah, for part 2, I'm going to be going over the top 10 episodes in season 9 on my opinion. This is all my opinion. If you agree with me, that's fine. If you don't agree with me, that's also fine. Leave your lists in the comments below. And while you're down there, talk to other people about their opinions. Okay, so that's all I really have to say. Let's get on to the number 10 on our entry list. Ooh. Fancy, isn't it? I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just play the video now.
I'm going to need a gun.
James vs. John is an episode that I'll always hold near and dear to my heart. For those who don't know, my dad is a huge James Bond fan, and him and I also went through each of the John Wick movies, and I massively enjoyed them all. When Chapter 4 comes out, I'm probably going to make a review to all the movies in one massive video, but right now, it's James vs. John time. So, the analysis is really good. I like them going into all the crazy shit that James has done, as well as them basically glorifying John like he were Batman by saying stuff like, he can do all of this because he's John Wick. I like that, it's cool. The fight, however, man, it is good with the capital G-O-O-D. Yeah, the starting bit is a bit janky, and the models, especially for James, are a bit off, but overall, it's pretty good. It feels like a proper crossover with with John asking James what MI6 wants with him, and them being at the Continental. Details like that are really cool, and I love them. Really cool? What the frick? Really cool, and I love them. The exploding pen gag was pretty funny, and it leading onto the bit with the Aston Martin is so cool. Speaking of, the scene with the Aston Martin is genuinely my favorite thing to come out of this episode. As the car goes out of control while spewing machine gun fire everywhere, similar to the opening scene from No Time to Die, the characters have a knife fight while the car is out of control. Sure, it may not be as tense as Snake vs. Sam's final knife fight, but it's still so cool. They're having a knife duel while ducking and weaving under Gatling gun fire. Then we get a reference to the opening of every James Bond film ever, which kind of implies that James shot through the barrel of John's gun, and that's why he doesn't try to shoot him again. John doesn't try and shoot James again. That's what I meant. John rushes at him despite being shot twice, showing his sheer determination and vigor, and then we get the death. I'll admit, at first, I didn't really like the death, as John doesn't really even try to avoid the chandelier. But looking at it more, John totally seems like the type of character to accept his death like that. Man, this episode is just so good. I would have beaten myself up if I didn't put this at the number 10 spot at least. It is such a good episode.
Valiant footwork!
I know this is going to shock you all, but Tundra vs. Jonathan is a really good episode. Outside of the analysis bringing up Wim Hof, whose methods have been scientifically disproven, and also resulted in the unfortunate loss of many people, the analysis is fairly solid. Aside from the Pickle, Rick, and Phineas and Ferb jokes. Those are just kind of there. It is a bit limited, as a lot of Demon Slayer fans are anime-only watchers, so we don't get to see the full potential for what Tanjiro's analysis can bring to the table, but it's fine, I don't mind. The fight, on the other hand, is a lot better. But I'm going to start out negative, because there are very few problems. The punch barrage from Jonathan at the beginning is very janky. He doesn't even move his legs, he just sort of floats around. The water effects from Tanjiro's breathing don't look very good. I don't know what it is. The coloring, or maybe just the way it moves. It just doesn't look right to me. And that's about it. That's all I have to say about it. The rest of this episode is really, really good. My favorite moments are Jonathan picking up and smacking Tanjiro in the face with a tree, and the characters monologuing in their heads. Jonathan complimenting Tundra on his footwork is perfectly in character for him, and it's definitely helped out by some amazing voice acting. Zach Maher, I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that, does a great job as Tanjiro, but it's Benji Buckley as Jojo that really steals the show for me. He really sounds a lot like Johnny Young Bosch, and I love that. Breathless Blades is also a really good track, and it fits very well with the fight. Overall, this episode is just really good, and I like that the death isn't something over the top. I mean, yeah, we get a bit of the over the top stuff with the Sunlight Yellow Overdrive, but like that was gonna work its way into the fight anyway. But the death itself, it's a peaceful mercy kill. Actually, the entire ending is really good, with Jonathan reaching out to Nezuko and her hesitating, making me want to know what happened next. Give me more, I need to know what happens! Heracles vs. Wukong is an episode that I don't really have much to say on it, despite me really liking it. I like both the analysis going over the mythology of both Heracles and Wukong. It's honestly one of the more interesting analyses to me. But that's partly because I'm a big mythology geek, so make of that what you will. Also, Wukong's analysis shows a clip from Lego Monkey Kid, and that is a based as hell show, so it's immediately the best analysis ever. The fight is also really well animated. The custom sprites look really good, they move fluidly and lead to some really cool moments like the three-headed Wukong versus Heracles, which I can't not bring this up, but in the storyboards for this fight, one of the Wukong heads is actually Goku, and that shit is just funny. And the background being a scroll that moves to progress the fight is a really cool idea. The voice acting is also good. Blythe Mellon does a good job at Heracles, and Alex Mai does a great job at Wukong. The ending is kinda mid, though. I like the concept. I just wish I could see what was going on. Anyway, good episode, I like it. Track is pretty good, but I don't listen to it a lot, so make of that what you will.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Despite this being a bonus episode, it's still a part of Season 9, and thus a part of my ranking. Excalibur vs. Raiden is such a good episode, man. I love it to pieces, and it all starts with that banger of an analysis. Just to get the obvious joke out of the way, Boomstick canonically wears a nightcap over his regular hat, and that is just adorable and funny at the same time. Also, despite this being a bonus episode, Ben really gives it his all when Wiz so much as speaks. Especially in the Calcul. That shit is funny. All of the Mountain King playing and getting progressively more intense as Wiz and Boomstick get way more into the debate is amazing, and whoever thought of that idea should get a raise. Overall, this analysis is an easy 10 out of 10 for me. The fight is also really fun. It's super fast, it's full of characters using a lot of their arsenal, more so Raiden than Excalibur because, well, Excalibur's arsenal is bigger than a small country. But Excalibur still gets to use a lot. He uses the Skana for close combat, the Glaive, which immediately gets destroyed after multiple throws, the Twin Vipers, which run out of ammo almost immediately, just like in the actual game, Radial Javelin to keep Raiden at bay, the Archwing, I don't know how to say it, to gain distance, Galaxion to freeze the Murasama, and the Exalted Blade to win the day. Raiden, on the other hand, not only gets to use his Murasama to dispose of most of Excalibur's weapons, his pistol with infinite ammo to show his advantage over Excalibur in one way, the hand staff that has a really hard to pronounce name, because why not, it's cool, and did I mention it also has a really hard to pronounce name, the freaking cardboard box. So glad they worked that into the episode. And Dystopia, which he uses to get in close for some sweet, sweet damage. But while Raiden uses a lot more gadgets than he did in Wolverine vs. Raiden, if you ask me, that episode had much better fight choreography. Now, don't get me wrong, while I do love the fight in this episode, there's basically no choreography. It's just a super fast movement with anime speed lines, and while that is fine, and I like it, I still prefer Wolverine vs. Raiden's fight. But then again, I do think that this episode has a much better analysis. Allowing Raiden to use more of his weapons than just a sword is really good. And it also has really good post-analysis. And before anyone says anything, no, just because Warframe sponsored this episode doesn't mean that Excalibur was always going to win. If you genuinely believe that, I can't speak, then just stop. Just stop. Oh, the voice acting is also really good. While Excalibur doesn't have a VA since he is a mute, Raiden and Lotus do have VAs. Caitlin Elizabeth does great with Lotus, she really does sound like her, it's kind of scary. But Mornell as Raiden steals the show for me. Outside of the Let Her Rip line, which feels a bit weak, the rest of their line deliveries are really solid. Also, the Metal Lotus is a good track, and that's all I have to say on it. Anyway, banger episode.
So, you're the punk I've heard about.
Well then, I'm pretty sure Omni-Man vs. Homelander not being on the top 5 is going to trigger a large portion of the Death Battle fandom. And you know what I say to that? Fucking bring it. Still won't change my mind. Now, don't get me wrong. I do like this episode, but from what I have seen, people praise this episode like it's the best thing since sliced bread. So, allow me to be the one to not do that and give what is probably my most controversial take in this entire video. I don't like the analysis that much. And with that, I'm pretty sure I just lost all of my subscribers, so might as well just continue. So, I'm only joking a bit. I do like Omni-Man's analysis, it's solid, but Homelander's to me is just bleh. Especially with the feat that shall not be named due out of fear to getting me demonetized. Overall, it's a 50-50 split for me. Now, the fight on the other hand is really good. But let's get the obvious complaint out of the way first. Yes, the fight is short. I know. And frankly, I would have preferred a longer fight. But with what we got, yeah, I really like it. The start of the fight is quiet. It sets up a great atmosphere showing how genuinely terrifying Homelander can be. And Homelander's motive for wanting Omni-Man out of his country to maintain his brand recognition, and the fact that he killed Debbie to try and scare Omni-Man is just perfectly Homelander. Omni-Man responding with a short and simple promise is also just perfectly Omni-Man. Note that I said promise and not threat. We get a brief scuffle which leads to the combination of the train scene from Invincible and the plane scene from The Boys. I like saying The Boys like that, it's funny. The fact that this implies that Omni-Man just does this type of shit whenever there's any type of vehicle cracks me up all the time. It's funny. Homelander screaming like a little baby is perfectly in character for him, and it having the bonus effect of knocking Omni-Man off balance is cool. And it leads perfectly into the climax. Omni-Man exiting through the flames on the ground, it's just funny. It honestly makes me wonder how this shot didn't become a meme. I mean, we had Reverse Flash's face and Hal Jordan saying a funny line about time. Why couldn't this be a meme, guys? Anyway, Homelander begins to threaten Omni-Man again while he lasers his face, and the moment Homelander brings up Mark, that's when Omni-Man makes good on his promise. And man, The death is so good. It's so gruesome and I love it. This episode is just helped out by some amazing voice acting as well. Tom Shulk kills it as Omniman. He's honestly a perfect fit for the character. But Yang Ye as Homelander? Dude nails everything. The charisma, the threatening side, and also the uncontrollable rage. He just nails it. Okay. I do like this episode. I really do. But I just don't see it as a top 5 episode. It does, however, give me hope for future Invincible episodes on Death Battle. I am really hoping for Gohan versus Invincible, but that's just a stomp, and also I just like Gohan. Gohan's cool. After Dragon Ball Superhero, Gohan has just grown on me as a character. Oh, track name. The track. It's good. Diabolical Invincible Me slaps, but it's a shite name. I hate it. I hate the name. The track is good, though.
Lick my balls.
Again, I want to say thanks to Nemesis Bloodreich for this wonderful, wonderful voice clip. Alright, everyone, say it with me now. This episode is really, really good. Just gonna skim over the first part quickly by saying the analysis is good. It goes over their abilities really well. But while I do think it's good, nothing really stands out to me personally outside of the cutaway in Magneto's actually making me laugh a bit. I don't know what it is. Dummy's excitement for his own death just cracks me up. I wonder what that says about me as an actual person. Anyway, the fight is what I really want to talk about because it is so good. Okay, so, like, for starters, Ego Death is, like, one of the best tracks this season, and I will die on this hill. Then you get the voice acting. Edward Bosco kills it as Magneto, and Joshua Waters does great as Tetsuo. Anyway, all that stuff out of the way. The animation is so damn good. Funnily enough, it gets really creative despite the character's only ability being able to move shit with their mind. Well, Magneto can do more than that, but it's just a generalization of their powers. Seriously, at one point, Tetsuo breaks Magneto's helmet and starts to choke him while also putting a force field around Magneto's head. And then Magneto chokes Tetsuo with his own metal arm. After that, Tetsuo goes into his gross baby form, which looks freaking phenomenal in this episode. Seriously, the hand-drawn stuff, it looks so good. We get the scene where Magneto realizes Tetsuo is in pain, and then he makes freaking soul blades out of the iron in his spilt blood.
I am not making this shit up!
Whoever came up with that idea, you deserve a massive raise because it is the coolest shit this side of the planet. And then we get to the death, which is honestly a lot better than Tundra's death in a lot of ways. Because after Magneto gets yelled at in his mind by Tetsuo's pain, the killing blow is swift and painless. Through the course of this fight, Magneto goes from thinking of Tetsuo as nothing more than an impudent child, as he puts it, to seeing him as a person in pain, going through pain that no one, let alone someone as young as Tetsuo, should be going through. So with his final words, Tetsuo thanks Magneto, and Magneto gives Tetsuo a sweet release. Honestly, massive props to Jamadi Rivers for writing this episode. You deserve a massive round of applause. You did such a good job with this episode. My least favorite thing about this episode is the fact that the track isn't called Bombing Bombshells. Come on, that was such a missed opportunity, guys. Jinx vs. Harley is an episode I've only grown a greater appreciation of over time. The analysis is alright. Nothing too stand out outside of Ringmaster talking about League of Legends, which got people mad because of reasons. And the fact that Harley actually lifted the 600-pound tree off the ground. The fight is really, really good. Special shout out goes to the graphics. My God, this is a beautiful animation. But you know what isn't pretty? Harley's model. It's so flat and bland. There's no detailing on her model whatsoever. It just looks so out of place when compared to Jinx, who's full of detail. But outside of the mediocre model, this fight is really fun and full of character. The characters get to show off their personalities pretty well with some pretty funny character moments, like Harley asking Jinx for a light, Jinx using Fishbones to talk to Harley, and Harley actually talking back to Fishbones, even scolding him when he betrays her. And of course, the carousel scene. That shit is just a really funny visual gag. Them freezing in midair doesn't really work for me since their worlds are semi-realistic without Toon Force bullshit, but at least it leads on to the ending, which often makes me forget that scene ever happened. Seriously, the ending is genuinely amazing. The visual style that mimics what Arcane does with Jinx is fantastic, and I'm so glad it was included. And the death, despite being a basic explosion death, is saved by both the build-up and just the way the explosion looks. Again, this animation is beautiful. Harley trying to pull a Joker and bait Jinx in for a finishing kill, and Jinx basically telling Harley to get stuffed is funny. So, if you couldn't tell, I really like this episode. Not my favorite premiere. I definitely think Yoda vs. King Mickey is probably my favorite after thinking about it for a while. But definitely a top 5 episode in my opinion. Oh, and Mad Laugh Ride is just a really good track, despite the name not being Bombing Bombshells.
Great Neptune!
SpongeBob vs. Super Friends Aquaman is an episode that literally no one saw coming. But while it is a banger of an episode, the analysis is predictable. It's good, but the moment Wiz goes from shitting on SpongeBob to losing his mind over how insane SpongeBob actually is, I think everyone knew that the opposite would be done for Aquaman. And I get it. It's a joke episode. And again, the analysis is pretty good. But there isn't really a payoff until the post-analysis where we get a calc for SpongeBob's speed. That I think might be a bit of a highball, but it's still funny that SpongeBob, of all characters, has the fastest calculable speed feat in Death Battle history. The fight is really good. Big shocker, I know. While I'm still not a fan of the Robot Patrick and Sandy sprites at the beginning, the rest of the sprite work in this episode is really good. Especially SpongeBob. I don't know what it is, but his sprites look way better than Aquaman's. Now that's not to say that Aquaman's sprites are bad, but they're still pretty good. Just SpongeBob's is better. Also, the voice acting is good. Tom Shulk starts off a bit awkward, but he gets better later on. But Keston Howard freaking kills it as Aquaman. He sounds just like a cheesy 60s superhero, and I love it. This episode is creative in a lot of ways. At first, I didn't know what the green portals were doing in the first place, but apparently it's a reference to Nicktoons United, so that's pretty cool. As is the bit at the end where Aquaman pulls in the entire ocean to counter SpongeBob rocketing through the atmosphere. That's just really funny. Because, well, it's Super Friends Aquaman. You wouldn't expect him to do something that insane and over the top. The ending overall is pretty sweet, I'll admit. It doesn't have the same emotional impact as Magneto vs. Tetsuo or Tundra vs. Jonathan, but SpongeBob crying over the dying Aquaman and using the magic pencil to create a gravestone in the shape of a number 1 is pretty touching, and a good way to end off the fight. Ocean Man is also a good track, just not one I'd listen to on its own. It's basically like Dumplings and Dragons and, what else? That's really all I can think of right now, but it's pretty good, just not one I'd listen to. This episode's placement may come as a shock to you all, given that this is objectively the best episode of Season 9. But like I said, this ranking is based on my personal opinion. And while I really like this episode, it isn't my personal favorite of the season. But Sauron vs. Lich King is a fantastic episode in general. The analysis is very entertaining. I especially like Sauron's, mostly because the cutaway gag cracks me up. The fact that the ring tempted Boomstick with food, and in response to that he just ate the thing, it makes me laugh. But the animation. Oh, Lord, the animation. All it does is prove why I prefer Blender to SFM Death Battle animations. So, for starters, I really like the way the animation looks. Aesthetically, it is very pleasing on the eyes. It is like Jinx vs. Harley, but turned up to like 13. It is that good. The models also look really good. Mostly for Sauron, because his model doesn't look as polygonal as Arthas, but both look really nice. Another thing I like, the track. One King to Rule Them All is such a good gothic orchestral track, and it's so fitting for both of the characters. Then we get to the voice acting. Ryan Solis captures the sheer presence that Sauron emanates, while he still hasn't gotten to W yet, Philip Sacramento kills it with Lich King. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Where the episode really shines is the action. Now, I have heard from one of my commenters named Elanalex that Sauron in the book apparently fights with his bare hands. And as cool as it would have been to see Sauron socking Arthas in the face with a left hook, I definitely think that it's best for him to use his mace here. Mostly because Sauron doesn't actually punch anyone, he kind of just touches them and then they burn up because, well, that's just metal as hell. But also so we can get some sweet weapon-on-weapon action. That sounds wrong, I'm sorry for that. There was also no real reason to why I included this bit in the script, I just thought it would be funny to mention. But in all seriousness, the actual stuff that happens in this episode is super cool. I really like how Sauron just walks up to Arthas' crib and tells him that he wants his throne back. The disrespect this man emanates is unreal, and I love it. But my favorite bit by far has to be when they both bust out their giant eyes and have a giant eye staring contest. Not only is the shot badass, but the fiery bright orange of the Eye of Sauron very nicely contrasts the cool blue hue of the Eye of Acheris. And then the ending as Sauron uses the One Ring to suck out Arthas' soul, and then as the light leaves Arthas' eye, Sauron just takes a seat on Lich King's throne, and somehow, Sauron taking a seat is way more impactful than all of Season 7. Amazing. So yeah, this episode is basically flawless. But what could beat it? Well...
Done, huh? Thanks for the...
Come on, how could this episode not be my favorite? Did you see how hard I popped off when Silver won?
I told you.
Oh my god, is he actually going to win?
For reference, that was our reaction to Trunks vs. Silver when it came out, posted on Lucariboi channel. If you liked listening to us ramble on about random crap after we talk about after we watch a Death Battle episode, go check out those videos. They were so much fun to make. Anyway, Trunks vs. Silver is such a good episode, man. It literally brings tears to my eyes. For starters, I love the analysis. Trunks is definitely the weakest in my opinion, while I do like the stuff they explained in it, there are these segments where Boomstick will mention something similar to the stuff in Dragon Ball Heroes and then immediately do the whole, oh no, not that thing, the other thing, and it just isn't that funny. That being said, I really like the music they used in Trunks' analysis. I know that's a weird compliment to make, but seriously, it is so good. If anyone actually knows what the first and last songs in Trunks' analysis are called, please tell me. I want to listen to them so badly. Moving on, Silver's analysis doesn't have as good music as Trunks's, but the editing is freaking fantastic, and I really like it. I also like Boomstick losing his mind over the fact that Spawn canonically exists in the Archie Sonic canon. That shit is funny. Okay, but now we get to the real start of the show. The animation. Time to get my one and only gripe with this animation out of the way. Trunks starts off a bit stiff in the animation, but he gets a lot more fluid later on. Yeah, that's it. The rest of this animation is pure, unfiltered enjoyment. Okay, so the voice acting is really good. Scott Frericks, I'm very sorry if I mispronounced your name, does a fantastic job as Trunks. But that's to be expected when you've had experience voicing the character before. Esu Onstie also does a great job as Silver. But that's to be expected when you literally got his official VA for the episode. Oh yeah, for those who don't know, whenever Death Battle credits their VAs with a random as hell name like Adam Park or Esu Onstie, it usually means that the character got the team got the official VA of the character. The track is also really good. Hedge of Tomorrow manages to capture that feeling that Dragon Ball and Sonic soundtracks usually have, and I love it so much. The sprite work is also really well done. Origin blesses us once again with his incredible sprite work. They just move so fluidly in the fight, especially Silver. He just feels so natural when he moves. Special shoutouts go to Silver, redirecting the 2 Kamehamehas back at Trunks, and then the Super Saiyan God Punch that just has so much impact, and it's really well animated. The ending is also spectacular. Not only are the Kronos Control and Eternal Tide Lambeth sounds really good, not only is Silver's super form resisting the Key Sword trying to rewrite him super cool, not only is the final It's No Use from Silver surprisingly badass, but the build-up to the death is really cool. Trunks uses a combination of the Key Sword and Spirit Sword to try and finish Silver off. Then Silver Uno reverses his attack and kills Trunks in a similar way to how Archie Sonic died in Wally vs. Sonic. And Trunks doesn't go down like a bitch. Silver actually has to force him into the blade. That's cool. The post-analysis is really good. It goes in depth with the cosmologies of both series, and I really like that. I do wish that they brought up the immeasurable speed feats for Xeno Trunks and tried to disprove them in some way, or say, Silver can maintain these speeds for much longer in his super form, or something like that. Just anything. It doesn't have to be that example specifically, it just has to be something overall. But I can't help but love this episode. Despite its flaws, this episode is currently my favorite of Season 9, hands down, and I doubt that it'll ever be topped. Like I said, Sauron vs. Lich King may be the best episode of Season 9, but Trunks vs. Silver is my favorite. And like I said, this is a personal ranking, so it's my personal opinion, so yeah. Hey, that was part 2 of my Season 9 ranking. Again, I am very sorry for the fact that I couldn't get this to be one big video. I really tried, you guys. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna end this off really quickly. Standard YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Comment down your personal ranking below. I love reading comments, so please do that. Check out Lucariboi's video when it comes out. It's not out yet, but I'll put a link in the description when it does come out. Follow me, Twitter, Instagram, all that crap. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Bye!